you. Thank you for having me today. And before I start, I know we have students here. Everybody that's a student, could you raise your hand? Okay, research extraordinaires right here. Okay, who else do we have? I know we have consultants because I have Mike here. Any other consultants here? Okay, let's see, architects. I know we have a couple architects. Nice. Anybody else want to yell out what you are? A historian, okay. So I think what's that? Attorney, okay. Economic developer. A project, someone with a project. I love it. I can say all of us are researchers then, right? We've all done our bit of research.
I'm going to do a little research. Did you bring the presentation?
Yeah, and I gave it to the woman. She's Matt's. It's on the desktop, she told me.
Okay.
She said it's on the desktop. It's this one.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I was looking for a different title.
Okay. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, good. It would not nearly have been as much fun if you had to just listen to my jokes for an hour. Okay, so as I was just saying, we're all researchers, right? From when I was a student at UWM, and I often say I was Matt's favorite student. I don't know if he agrees with that, but we're all students. And so what we do, I'm a consultant with Heritage Consulting Group, and this is a company, let's see, I'm here. I was hired to be the Midwest director. Our main office is in Philadelphia. We also have an office in Kansas City. And now I think we're up to 28 people, and we have people in Austin, Texas, Raleigh, North Carolina, Columbus, Ohio, Portland, Maine, Omaha, Nebraska, Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're all over the place. And so our company, we work for developers and building owners to get their buildings listed on the National Register if they're not yet listed. So we work with our SHPO offices to see if the building's eligible, and then we do the research and we write the nominations, the Part 1 applications. We are experts on the Secretary of Interior standards, which we all know. That's what we follow. That's what Matt was saying. All of our projects have to meet the standards. My experience working for Wisconsin SHPO for 10 years, I reviewed these projects. It was a lot of fun. Mike McQuillan, I reviewed his projects. He's a good one. So anyway, historic buildings, it's kind of in my blood, love it, and I'm here today just to talk about research. And I hope that you guys join in. If you have a story you'd like to share, raise your hand, or a time, a situation that you could share with us, because I think we can learn from each other a lot, more than me just down here babbling. Okay, so my adventure begins. Research is always an adventure. I was talking to a colleague and I said, what do you think? What do you think about research? Research, you never know what you're going to find, right? We all know that. You go into it thinking one thing, you're going to find out lots of different things. And I have here a photo. It's a Duncan, from the Duncan Yo-Yo Company, which was founded, they built their yo-yo plant in Luck, Wisconsin. Who knows where Luck, Wisconsin is? Yes. That was, my dad is a retired Lutheran pastor. His first church was in West Denmark Lutheran Church in Luck, Wisconsin. It's northwest Wisconsin. And in 1946, the Duncan Yo-Yo Company built their factory there because of the maple wood that they had to make their yo-yos out of. Now, my family moved to Luck when I was just a little thing, and Luck's a tiny little town, and I thought I knew all about it. And something came up and they said, Jen, can you find this out about Luck? And I thought I knew everything about Luck. And I started doing research. I didn't know the Duncan Yo-Yo factory was built in Luck, Wisconsin. Who would have known that? So that's my example. You never know what you're going to find when you start doing research. Okay, I don't want to miss hands. If you guys have a similar story, please share. Okay, So why do we conduct research? As I mentioned, in Wisconsin, if you have a building that's not yet listed and you want to see if it's eligible, you have to submit a NRQ, or National Register Questionnaire form. And that's, we call that at Heritage, it's kind of like a pre-part one, right? In other states, they call it a DOE, Determination of Eligibility. But it's, you gotta get in there. You gotta give them something along with current photos of the building to say, do we have a hook? Is there something here that's gonna make it eligible? We conduct research to write our Part 1 applications for the historic tax credits. We write the nominations. And we can say this, anybody who's written a nomination, has done research, what's the difference between a National Register nomination written in 1975 versus one written in 2025? Who out there can answer this? AI. What's that? AI. Digital photos. AI, good one. Digital photos, yes. Another one? What's that? How long it is. Thank you, Carol Dyson. Nominations written in 1975 maybe were 3 pages long. Not a lot of detail in there. There's not a lot. Today, how long do you think the average National Register nomination is, Mike McQuillan?
I don't know, but it can take a large part of your year.
Yes, 40, 50 pages?
Yeah, I would say.
40 or 50 pages? That's a lot of writing, that's a lot of research. And no matter how good you're making stuff up, you can't make up 50 pages worth of a National Register nomination, right? We also do research, well, DOE's, Determination of Eligibility. In Wisconsin, we see these through DOT or DNR. We want to protect our places and survey any potential historic buildings or structures we have out there. We also do research, and this comes from my heart as a preservation architect, to inform the proposed rehabilitation. We learn, what were these buildings originally used for? What were the materials? Was this always like this, or did they change this 20 years after it was built? So through the research, it can inform what is going to meet the Secretary of Interior standards and what would not be appropriate. The photos I have here on the screen is just my anecdotal story for this one, and it's one of Milwaukee Schuster's department stores. And Schuster's department store in Milwaukee, I don't know how many they had, but this particular building is on Vliet Street. And when Heritage was first given this project, they hired us to do this project, and they said, it was a Schuster's department store. It should not be a problem at all. Just go get it listed, right? I have Dinah Pinkunas here in the audience, and she's gonna know exactly how this one ends. So we set out, and we're doing our research on Schuster's department store. Come to find out, this wasn't the first Schuster's department store. It wasn't the best one. And it had lost a lot of integrity because about 1961, the county purchased it. Milwaukee County or the state?
Either the city or the county.
Yeah, I think it was the county. Milwaukee County purchased it, and it became the Milwaukee County Welfare Department. And so in 1961, you can imagine a department store that was constructed in 1920. They did a little rehab to it, to what it turned out to be, and then Milwaukee County did another rehab in probably 1981. So you can imagine, this building no longer looks like Schuster's department store. It looks like a Milwaukee County Welfare Department building. And Dinah was SHPO at the time, and so we went in and met with Dinah and Elizabeth, the National Register coordinator, and we were talking. We're like, we know buildings, there are lots of little hooks, right? What can we get for this building? And we got to talking about it, and we were learning why did Milwaukee County buy a ginormous department store for the welfare department? What was going on in the 60s and 70s? Major welfare reform at the federal level. And that was all getting trickled down to the local level. So I got one of my favorite research colleagues, Spencer. Spencer's located in Philadelphia, but he loves Wisconsin projects. He just loves them. So we got Spencer, and he dug into this. And this building on Fleet Street is not listed on the National Register as Schuster's. It's not even listed yet. It's going to be, but it's going to be listed because of Milwaukee County Department of Welfare and because of the welfare reform, the history of welfare reform in our country and how it trickled down. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool story. But these escalators, I like to say this is one of the only things left from when it was a department store. Schuster's put in these escalators, and they're still there today. I don't know if they'll be there after the rehab, but we'll talk about that another time. Okay, so how do we research? Do we just jump in the deep end, both feet, just see what we can find? I mean, you could, but I say we should make a plan. Let's make a targeted plan for what we want to find. What are we looking for? I've listed some of the most common things that we're going to find when we do building research. We're going to find newspaper articles, building permits, if you're lucky, the original building drawings, maps, sandbar maps, tax rolls, city directories, bibliographies. The reason it's important that we create some sort of targeted plan, this is my little drawing, because you don't want to go down the rabbit hole, right? I mean, I mentioned we're all researchers here. We've all done it. And you start and you find something, you're like, oh, that is amazing. And you start, and 2 days later, you're like, wait a second. This doesn't help my building research at all. Mike, that's never happened to you, right? No.
Especially when looking at old newspapers.
Old newspapers, yes, those are fun. Those are a lot of fun. So I think it's so important to, before you start your research, have a plan. What are specific things that you're going to be looking for that's going to help you with your project, whatever you'll be writing? And of course, as an architect, I love the historic photos. That's probably my favorite. And historic photos are so important. So this is, we call it the Elyria block. It's in Elyria, Ohio. And you can see the historic postcard on the lower left. It was an entire block, Italianate style. The photo on the top, you can see that was taken probably, I don't know, mid-century of this building. And the lower right, that's what the Elyria block, that's what it looks like today. And you can say, wow, something happened to that right side of the building, didn't it? And so again, this was a project that was given to us and said, can we get this listed? And we said, well, I don't know what integrity we have for that right-hand side of the building. But anyway, once again, our researchers dug in, and guess what? That right side of the building, what was happening in mid-century, last century, we wanted to modernize our buildings, right? Our downtowns. And the coolest way to do that was with some sort of metal frame, metal storefront, cladding, whatever. What we found out is this won an AIA award in 1967 for its design. And what a difference it made to this community. And it really started we kind of said it started a trend, right, for the area. And so we have the Robinson building, which is on the right, and we have the Dixon building on the left. They're both listed on the National Register, but for two very different reasons. So It's fun. And this is a historic tax credit project now. And guess what? All the research we found has only educated design decisions. We're the consultants on it. We've been working with the architect, even the contractor. It's really a fun project. We're all working on this together. Even though the contractor is a Steelers fan, we talk often about that, but that's okay. Okay, how do we do research? The second thing is we want to develop a list of questions. What questions need answering, right? And that's going to vary depending on the project, the building that we're researching, why we're doing the research. But simple ones: who built it and why? What is the building chronology? One of my favorite books when I was in grad school was about accretion of buildings. How do buildings learn and grow, right? It's very rare to find a building built 100 years ago and it still looks like that. So a lot of things have changed. What's the building chronology? What happened in this building? Who worked in this building? What companies were here? And as example I used in Schuster's department store, it's not always the first company that's the important one, right? Sometimes it's the last company. And on this slide, I have an example. It's one of my favorite projects. This is Paoli, Wisconsin. Do I say that correctly? Paoli? Is it? Okay. I feel like it depends on where I am. Sometimes people correct me. Paoli. Paoli is southwest of Madison, maybe 20 minutes, right? And Paoli, this was a creamery. And when the client, Nick Mink, called me and he said, Jen, I want to buy this building in Paoli and I want to get it listed and do historic tax credits. I looked at the building and just knowing about integrity, I was like, wow, I don't know. This is hard. It's a hard one. It was not a little jewel box gem of a creamery, right? This building was tough. Now today you can go to Paoli and it's a 7-acre dairy and it is just the coolest place. You can get ice cream, they make their own butter there, have dinner. There's a little boutique hotel, you can stay in the creamery. It's pretty cool. But in the research, when we looked at the building chronology, do you see this little diagram? Okay, the numbers represent the additions, how many times this creamery was added onto. So the first one was constructed in, at this location. There's an older one, 1800s elsewhere. But this one I think was 1920. 2 was 1940. 3 was the 60s. 4, same 60s later. 5 and 6, oh yeah, those were the last ones. That was like 1980, and 7, that was done after the creamery left. But wow, this building grew a lot, right? And so while I was looking at it, without doing any research, I just looked at it and said, wow, this building's changed a lot. I don't know if it's a creamery, integrity. Guess what? All of it, lovely integrity, because this creamery was here until 1980, just after 1980. And Pabst Farms purchased it. And, oh no, that was while it was a creamery. Pabst Farms, it was after Pabst sold it in 1980. Anyway, so how cool is that? What all that research did to help us with this historic tax credit project. It was pretty fun. Okay, so research. We always want to start with our local repositories, right? Come on. How many people know this photo? Where is this taken at? Anybody?
State Historical Society.
Thank you, the reading room. There you go. Thank you, Dinah, for not ruining it for everybody. Okay. This is the Wisconsin Historical Society. And it's an amazing place. And I definitely recommend going there to do research. But I would start with your local historical society. When we did, oh no, it was the New Glarus Hotel we're working on right now. And we had done a ton of research. And I had colleagues that said, Jen, can you go to the New Glarus Library for us? Sure, what am I looking for? And they gave me a list of things, of resources, books that they could find online, but you had to go to New Glarus Library to check them out. I said, I'll do that. So, but yeah, definitely, always go local first. It's amazing the things that you can find, the people will love to share with you stories, of course. Let's see, libraries, historical societies, hard to find books, vertical files, clippings. The SHPO office, we have files on certain buildings that have newspaper clippings or whatever. Sometimes you can find floor plans. I'm going to give you this is a great story. I was in grad school at UWM, and I was doing a project at the Pabst Brewery, and this was before it closed, I believe. Maybe it had just closed. So it wasn't all rehabbed like it is today. Let's see, what year was it? 1998 was my research. And I was told that the Milwaukee Public Library had architectural drawings of some significant buildings in Milwaukee, and I could go down there and ask. And it was an elderly gentleman that owned all of these. This was his collection, but they kept it. Mike knows where I'm going with this story. Do you? So I showed up, and a little grad student, and I said, hello, I'm looking for, if you have drawings for such and such building at the Pabst Brewery. And the gentleman said, sign in. Okay, I'll go take a look. And he came back, and I don't know if he had the drawings, didn't want to share them because I didn't have a skirt on. He said I needed to fix my hair and put a skirt on, and then maybe somebody could help me. So I don't know if they had drawings or if they didn't, but the story is keep digging. You're going to find them. There have been many projects where the drawings are rolled up, put in a garbage bin in the basement. So always start in your historic building. There's a good chance there's original drawings there as well. Okay, variety of sources. We know we have the internet. It's so easy. Just get on that internet and start looking. The problem is, of course, we know what are we looking at? Is this real? Is it not real? I'm leery, right? I love getting real primary sources. But the other thing is, don't forget alive people. I was going to say don't forget live people, but alive. Don't forget people that are alive. And this comes from, it was probably one of my first site visits when I was hired at SHPO, and we were doing a site visit. Oh, shoot, I don't even remember what town it was. Small little town, and we were looking at this building that had a historic bar on the first floor, and the upper floors were a hotel, originally a hotel, and they had been converted to rooming, boarding rooms or whatever. But this owner wanted to convert this building. And we're standing out on the sidewalk with the owner and a local contractor, and we were just talking about, oh, what could we do, and what do we think was here? And I'm not exaggerating. This older gentleman walks by and he said, are you talking about this bar? This bar? And we said, yeah, it had been closed. He's like, you want pictures? I have pictures of the inside of this bar, and I'll share them with you. What? It was fantastic. And he sure did have pictures of the interior of that bar from, 40 years ago. So, don't forget, interviewing people. We did a lot of interviews for Paoli Creamery, family members of folks that had worked there. A lot of fun. Let's see. I did mention talk to librarians. They love to help. I would say most librarians like to help. And they're probably just as excited to get you where you need to be. And sometimes there are things that we don't even think about. This page is from a HUD report that was done, and we're doing this research for one of the, I don't think it was the first affordable housing in Green Bay, but doing research, and we found this HUD report that kind of gave a lot of information about this particular building. So anyway, you just never know what you're going to find out there. That's what makes research so much fun. 3, of course, you need to vet sources and corroborate information, right? Especially anything we find on the internet. We want to make sure that it's real. We really want primary sources whenever possible. And I love the period documents. So this is a advertisement, going back to Schuster's department store, from when they remodeled. So you could have something like this, but guess what? They talk about the finishes in this building. Now, it didn't end up helping us because we ended up going with Milwaukee County Welfare Department, but if we were looking for what were the historic finishes in this building, something like this is just a gold mine, right? The photo next to it is a drugstore in Wisconsin, and there is a newspaper article, no photos, it wasn't an advertisement like this, but it was a reporter that was announcing, like the opening. And guess what? In that article, they don't really do that anymore, but they went through and described the floor finishes, the wall, the ceiling, just kind of giving a written description of the space. Again, that's fantastic. So use all of that to help you with your writing, the National Register nomination, the NRQ, but also, of course, with your rehab. In the end, it all comes together. As I was mentioning, all of this information helps us to get the buildings listed, to get them rehabbed. This is the Pope Brace Factory in Kankakee, Illinois, and they made braces for polio, patients, and this is Pope Brace Factory in Kankakee. And again, the research that we found got it listed. It's in the middle of rehab, but it's really fun. Research can be fun, and in the end, it's, I think, very satisfying to get it all pulled together. So I guess before I end, I want to ask anybody out here, do you guys have any stories you'd like to share? Some fun research stories. Students? No? Yes? Oh, yes.
We've been very fortunate through Facebook. We have found the great-granddaughters of superintendents from 1857. They had a box of photographs they thought were worthless. They are now in the hands of the architect who is refurbishing our building. So Facebook is really a source of searching.
Yes.
We found actually 5 great-granddaughters of superintendents. So
That's
we now
amazing.
have 5 boxes. of
Wow.
photographs.
Okay, so Facebook,
The most complete.
yes, Facebook has brought 5 boxes of photos to help you. And tell us again what your project is.
We are the Friends of the R.D. Pike Building. It's a fish hatchery in Bayville, Wisconsin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's fantastic. Another great example of how alive people can help us. Yes?
Yeah, my parents built a mid-century modern house I lived in, and I acquired it. But when I was 4, the home was under construction, and a contractor said to my mother, "Can I walk through on a weekend? It was under construction." And she said, "Sure." And then my mother said, "Where did that man go?" And I said, "He left." And he left with a set of plans. He stole the plans. And the Milwaukee Journal, this parade of homes in 1956 was winning this house, and the architects, which were Leonard Reinke and Ted Irian, they were studied under Lee Spanderow at Illinois Institute.
Yeah.
And they designed my parents' house. And they said that winning parade of homes is too like our house. So
Yeah.
ended up, it was a lawsuit, and I always heard this story, but I never knew, where is that other house built?
Wow.
Where is it? And I said, well, I'll go to the court. Actually, Leonard Reinke said to me, he was 94, he says, Chuck, I want to have lunch with you. I'll bring
Yeah.
the file on the
Yeah.
lawsuit over the plans. I said, great, I want to tell you about it. And then every time I'd see him, he'd say, I can't find my file. So I said, let's have lunch.
Yeah.
He died in 96. And then I talked to his daughters, does he have the file? No, we can't find any file. So I thought, well, I'll go to the courthouse. I went to the courthouse, you keep the lawsuits from back
Yeah.
19, they said, we don't have them on record, because we don't keep civil suits that far back. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll someday research the Milwaukee Journal archives and maybe find out where this house is.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, I'll try Joan at the Oshkosh Public Library
Okay.
and see if there's any stories
Uh-huh.
in the Oshkosh Daily Northwestern about it. And so, lo and behold, she sends me back pictures of the Parade of Home brochure. Nothing has the address.
Oh.
I said, where is that? And she said, there's one place I could look, maybe at the Milwaukee Public Library archives.
Yeah.
And so then, wham, she sends me a Zillow listing of the house
Oh, wow.
in Thiensburg, and it's there. And it was remodeled in the 1980s. It had interior shots on Zillow. And I went by the house one day when I was coming home, and I knocked on the door, and no one answered. So I put my card on the door, and I still haven't heard from them. I'm gonna, this year maybe, I'm gonna find the.
Do you think they know their house was built from stolen drawings?
I don't think they do.
No, probably not. Probably
It's,
not.
It's interesting how it, I want to go inside, but the pictures on Zillow were
That's-
changed from my.
that's a great
my house
story.
is not changed.
See? Yeah, that's a great story. Lots of fun.
Now you know where it is.
Now you know. Yes.
So I'll preface, I've never done it like in a real sense, but I did an adopted release project during my master's, and I decided, a fun thing to do is just fill out a nomination form for the building that I was doing the adopted release for. Does that make sense? And I went through the process of finding historic information on it, and I felt like there was a lot of counteractive information and like timelines that were just like not lining up, facilities that maybe were in this building. There was just inaccuracies, but I just wondered how you determine what it is potentially like false information, how you consider
Yeah.
what history is accurate versus what's not.
Yeah, and that's why corroborating and confirming these sources is so important. And I think that's why our company, we like primary sources. That's the best. There's a million web pages out there, websites, but you just don't know unless you find that newspaper article from the Herald, 1920, the day after the store opened. You know what I mean? I think it's tough. The other thing I remember hearing, and I don't know if it was Diana or Elizabeth Hilton, who's our National Register Coordinator at SHPO right now, but she said she received, I wonder if it was an NRQ or Part 1, and she said it was AI generated. And she could tell. So guess what? AI is not going to get rid of any of us. They need us. Because Elizabeth said it was ridiculous. Yes, sir.
So in Milwaukee, along Fond du Lac Avenue, there's a few buildings that already have some National Historic or State Historic Registry, like the Legacy Bank building,
Yep.
or the Columbia Savings Bank building. There was another building along that street, a little bit located down the way from the old Milwaukee Mall, where Sears building,
Yep.
always were. And it was called the Satin Doll Lounge. I went to the Milwaukee County Historic Society, right there on the Drive, and I asked them whatever,
Yeah.
they give me any information from the early 20th century,
Yeah.
from North Avenue and Fond du Lac. Turns out the Satin Doll Lounge was not just like an ordinary lounge. It had some very cool people performing there, one of them being Luke Wellington.
Yeah.
And then there's a woman I used to see there all the time, for the life of me, I cannot remember her name, but it was a very popular bar for early 20th century black musicians and stuff like that.
That's cool.
And there was this other building along Lisbon. It was used, I'm pretty sure it's called Historic District, but it was used it was bought by a lawyer, by
Yeah.
one of the black lawyers around, and like he settled disputes, like neighborhood disputes, community disputes in his building.
Oh, that's cool.
Official judgment, like that's
Yep.
what he did. The Historic Society somehow added information on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. And that's another example of what were the people that were in these buildings. There's so many stories, not just about the companies, but the people that lived or worked or played in these buildings. And yeah, another Milwaukee County Historical Society that's another great resource, definitely. Yes.
I'm from De Pere, near Green Bay, and a couple of years ago there was an AIA state meeting in Green Bay.
Yep.
And one of the people who came in from Milwaukee, an architect from Milwaukee, came up and he told me, because I was on the review committee, he told me there is somebody who gave a presentation at the AIA, he's a building contractor, and he said, I live at such and such place in This architect calls me and says, what's his phone number? I gave him the phone number, and the house that his dad designed and built was now owned by this gentleman, the development contractor.
That's awesome.
In De Pere.
Yeah.
It's one of those weird things.
Yes. That's why we talk to each other, right? It's a small world. That's fantastic. Any other research stories? Yes.
I have a question. I was wondering who your clientele was and how involved they are throughout their research process.
Our clients? It depends. It's my favorite answer. I say it depends to everything. No, but that's a great question. So the Paoli Creamery example, our client is Nick Meek, and Nick Meek is a former history professor at UW Superior. He's a former history professor. So guess what? He loved doing the research. And so he probably did half of it. He got into a lot of the interviews with the local folks who had dads or brothers or grandpas, whoever, that worked at the creamery. So to answer your question, sometimes it's that, and then sometimes nothing. Sometimes clients are just saying, I just want to buy this building. I don't know anything about it. Go. So, and everything in between. So
It's business owners, people that own the property, they come to you with it, and not like community members.
Correct. It's usually whoever owns the building or who's buying the building for rehabilitation that will hire us, and then we work with their architect. We do the research and get it listed, but we also work with the architect on the part two then. Yep. Any other questions? Yes.
Research stories. Last year, I was doing a research paper on Chicago Common and the restoration of that brick, and I took a tour with this guy who gives tours on brick around Chicago in specific neighborhoods, and was able to talk with him after, and he gave me, he ended up emailing me his. He was writing a book, and he had his unfinished manuscript where a couple chapters were on Chicago Commons specifically, and some of the case studies and interviews he had done with specific buildings in the area, and construction workers that have directly like worked with restoration of it.
That's cool.
And it was just it was a really helpful like first-hand resource.
And that makes your research a lot more fun also. I mean, you learn a lot more and it's a lot more fun. That's fantastic. Good. Any other stories or questions? Yes, Dan.
We rehabbed a 1880s Victorian house in Milwaukee, and I wanted to comment about going on a visual detective novel. We were curious what the original colors were in the main foyer, and we started peeling down layers and layers of wallpaper and another coat of paint and another coat of paint, and I think there must have been 7 layers trying to figure out what the original colors were used on the building. So it's like a detective novel visually.
Absolutely. That's why we tell contractors for the selective demo phase, or we say, don't use a sledgehammer, just start taking things off nicely. It's just take the layers off because you might end up damaging some historic material. So that's a great analogy. Yes, Catherine.
What was the most creative hook that you found that you were able to get a building designated?
Creative hook.
You know, so obscure fact about its history, or you know, what's enough to.
That's a great question for Dinah. Do you know Dinah worked at the Wisconsin Historical Society for 30 years? I don't know, Dinah, how long? What do you must have a great example.
Well, it gets back to your example that it's not always the first thing that is the most significant thing about a building. So yes, the one about the
Milwaukee County.
The Milwaukee County office, that was a newer example, but one that was very interesting is, I think it's now called the Knitting Lofts in Milwaukee.
Yes.
And that was one of I was the National Register coordinator at the time, and it was like, it was this knitting company in Milwaukee, and it's like, Milwaukee had tons of knitting companies. It didn't rise up in any way. We were still looking for something that made this property really distinct and different and significant within its context. And it was the ongoing research, and it was eligible as the home of Goodwill Industries, because it was the home of Goodwill at the time when they started doing all of their educational components, of the trades components, and at the time, the president of the Milwaukee Goodwill was the president of Goodwill United States. Yeah. And so it was actually listed as the Goodwill building, but when it became apartments, they were called the Knitting Lofts.
It's Eagle Knitting or whatever. Yes.
It was more about, you do have to do the research, and sometimes it is a relationship with a person or some aspect of its history or something that happened in that building. There's one in the 3rd Ward that was listed because it was for invention for the Bostrom tractor seat, which made plowing and riding on your tractor much better because the seat was separated from the tractor itself. So there you go. It was because of this one thing.
The tractor seat, yes.
So you do have to dig.
A little digging. And that leads me to say, no matter what state you're in, there's really some great SHPO people, National Register coordinators, that they want to help you. I know Wisconsin has always been very helpful, and they may say, not the best Schusters, but we got there, and so very helpful. Yes?
I think there's an area that I think is often overlooked with buildings, and that is their role in the history of technology. So one of the things that will often be understanding about a building isn't necessarily, there is certainly the occupants, the properties who own it, but it's actually where did that building participate in the development of technology. So this is a good one that we're sitting in. On the one hand, this looks very forward technologically. Actually, it's made like a Victorian building. So when they took the Romy House apart, I remember being down to look at that renovation, and I lived in a building from 1884, and I looked at it and I'm like, wow, it's the same construction technology used. Wright was very clever at taking what was existing technology and reimagining how it might have
Absolutely.
That's one example of a way in which building can partake in the sort of story of the use of technology. Another is that at about the 1890s, what you start seeing in the United States, particularly the Midwest, is the mass production of building pieces and parts. So if you live in a house from the late 1800s, 1890s, the odds are the stairway was mass produced, probably in Chicago. Stuff was being made in Chicago, put on a train and was shipped, and then installed in your home by a master carpenter. So it still had the kind of, the handwork that was necessary to make it fit, but the object itself is now a mass-produced object.
Absolutely.
So that actually is an important part of the history of the way in which technology is used in buildings. And if you can sometimes link a building to that, you can make an argument for its value. We've done that before. We said, look, there's actually a new material that was used in the site, or there's a new way in which a material was used in this building, and so therefore it becomes an important example of the use of technology.
Thank you. That's a great example as well. Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, I've been telling the students too that if you can get several of those E10s, right, E2, E4, we found a very nice building in the historic Third Ward, and it was technologically significant because of its precast kind, one of the first examples of that kind of system. And we thought, well, I don't know if this is going to qualify. But a little bit later, when we found out that Abraham Lincoln took a bath in that building, that's what we're talking about. So that is true.
Dinah does not like that example.
There is a build there. It's off of Water Street, St. Paul.
Carol?
So in Illinois, land Lincoln, there's all sorts of Lincoln mythology. And I can't even count the number of times people call and say, well, that building is really historically significant. There's a Lincoln XYZ, Belkin, it's up there. But my favorite was the call where they said, if Lincoln hadn't been assassinated, he would have started a law firm with the man who built this building.
Yes, that's good. Let's conjecture history. Yes.
Get back to resources, and it's, as I mentioned to Mary here, that one great source is your local library, especially if they might still have microfiche, might be digitized, those old newspaper articles, but especially when I say library, I mean sometimes more specifically as Bad Architects Library. Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation sold their archives to, I believe, Cornell University. I have to check on that.
I think they're Columbia.
Okay. But others that follow organic architecture, there's another society out there, organic archives and design, OAD. It's another group that has collected many of Frank Lloyd Wright's fellowship who continue to tell us architects here. They're collective works.
Sure.
And also many other creative architects across the United States. OAD archives. House down in Arizona. But, it's those archives.
The archives, exactly. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. I think my time's done. All right. Thank you.